Hey there, ready to dive into a story that's both epic and surprisingly relevant today?
Yeah.
Buckle up, because we're going deep into the Pueblo Revolt of 1680,
Wow.
a turning point in North American history that most people have never even heard of.
It's one of those events that really flips the script on how we usually think about Native American history.
Right.
We often hear about displacement and defeat,
hmm
but the Pueblo Revolt is a story of successful resistance against incredible odds.
And for this deep dive,
Yeah.
we're tapping into an episode of the American History Hit podcast
Hey.
featuring Matt Liebman,
Mm-hmm.
an archaeologist and anthropologist who brings some serious expertise to the table.
He does.
He literally digs into the past,
He does.
helping us understand the lives of the Pueblo people
Yeah.
during this tumultuous time.
What's fascinating about Liebman's work is that he uses archaeology to uncover details that traditional historical records just don't capture. It's like piecing together a puzzle, using artifacts and excavations to create a richer picture of the past.
Okay, so before we get into the revolt itself,
Okay.
let's paint a picture of the world the Pueblo people inhabited.
Okay.
When we say Pueblo, what exactly are we talking about?
It's a term that refers to both a type of village and a larger group of indigenous peoples in the Southwest.
Okay,
Think about those iconic multi-story adobe structures you see in pictures.
I see.
That's classic Pueblo architecture.
And these weren't just simple villages, right?
Oh, no.
The Pueblo people had developed sophisticated agricultural techniques to thrive in that challenging desert environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They were masters of adapting to the land, growing crops like corn and beans in a place where
Right.
most people would struggle to survive.
Wow.
And here's the thing.
Yeah.
When we talk about the Pueblo people, we're not talking about a single homogenous group.
Right.
There were around 100 different Pueblo villages,
Wow.
speaking 7 different languages,
Mm.
each with its own unique cultural traditions.
Wow, 100 villages.
Yeah,
It really highlights how complex and established Pueblo civilization was
it does.
long before European contact.
Exactly. It's crucial to remember that they were a thriving, diverse people with centuries of history and culture before the Spanish ever arrived.
Mm.
They weren't just surviving, they were building a complex society with intricate social structures and deep spiritual traditions.
Yeah, mind-blowing to think about, isn't it?
It is.
And then into this well-established world enter the Spanish in the late 1500s.
Yeah.
And as we all know, the arrival of Europeans rarely meant good news for the indigenous people they encountered.
You got that right.
Yeah.
The Spanish arrived driven by those classic tales of gold cities, the legendary 7 cities of Cibola.
Oh, wow.
They were on a quest for riches, and the Franciscan missionaries weren't far behind, eager to spread Christianity.
It's a pattern we see repeated throughout history, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Exploit the resources and convert the people.
And for the Pueblo people, Spanish rule translated into harsh realities.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about introducing a new religion, it was about suppression.
Oh,
Traditional religious practices were banned.
wow.
Pueblo people were forced into labor,
Mm.
and even their food stores were seized, leading to widespread famine and disease.
It's heartbreaking to hear how their way of life was disrupted so drastically.
But
But knowing the Pueblo people, I'm guessing they didn't just accept this passively.
not a chance.
Yeah.
The Pueblo people are known for their adaptability and resilience, but they were also fierce defenders of their culture and beliefs.
Right.
Even in the face of Spanish oppression, they found ways to resist.
So what did that early resistance look like?
Well,
Was it organized or more like individual acts of defiance?
there were definitely a number of smaller rebellions, often localized to a single village.
Okay.
Sometimes they'd burn down a mission church or even kill a priest. It
Wow.
was a way of sending a clear message.
Uh.
We will not submit.
It sounds like those early acts of resistance were a warning, like, don't push us too far.
Exactly. And as the 17th century went on, those tensions just kept escalating, particularly when a particularly brutal Spanish governor came to power in the 1670s.
Okay.
This is where our story takes a dramatic turn with the emergence of a charismatic religious leader named Pope.
Ah, Pope, the mastermind behind the revolt. Tell us more about him and how he became such a pivotal figure.
Pope was from Oque Pueblo, also known as San Juan Pueblo,
Okay.
and his story is incredible.
Yeah.
This new governor we mentioned, he decided to make an example of Pueblo religious leaders.
Okay.
He rounded up a group of them, including Pope,
Mm.
brought them to Santa Fe,
Wow.
and had them publicly whipped and punished.
Oh, wow.
Some were even executed.
Wow, talk about a power move. Public punishments like that are all about intimidation and control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But for Pope, this experience seems to have had a galvanizing effect. After being released from prison, he retreated to Taos Pueblo, the northernmost outpost of the Spanish Empire at the time.
Okay.
And it was there that he received a powerful prophecy.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting.
It does.
Tell us about this prophecy.
According to Pope, the spirits visited him in his retreat and delivered a message of hope and revival.
Okay.
They told him the Pueblo people could return to a world of abundance where the crops would flourish and the people would thrive.
Wow.
But there were two conditions.
Uh-oh.
They had to expel the Spanish and fully embrace their traditional ways.
It's almost like a vision of hitting the reset button, a chance to reclaim their lost world.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Pope took this prophecy very seriously and set about organizing a coordinated uprising across all the Pueblo villages, something that had never been done before.
Right.
And to pull it off, he utilized a brilliantly simple tool, knotted cords.
Okay, let's talk about those chords. There's such a clever and symbolic element of this story. Each knot representing a day counting down to the rebellion. It's like something out of a movie.
It really is. This ingenious system allowed Pope to overcome the language barriers and vast distances between the villages.
Wow.
Runners were sent out to each village with instructions to untie one knot each day.
Wow.
When the last knot was gone, it was time to strike.
I can just picture the tension building with each passing day as those cords were untied.
Yeah.
And the Spanish almost caught wind of it, right?
It was a close call.
Oh, no.
Just 2 days before the planned uprising, Spanish authorities captured a couple of runners carrying the cords.
Wow.
They knew something was brewing, but they had no idea the scale of what was coming.
So Pope had to scramble and adjust the plan.
Absolutely, he had to act quickly.
Oh, wow.
A new set of runners was dispatched with a simple message: tomorrow is the day.
Wow.
The revolt would begin on August 10th, 1680, ready or not.
August 10th, 1680. Can you imagine the energy as the Pueblo people united after decades of planning and simmering resentment
Oh, yeah.
rose up against their oppressors?
It must have been incredible.
Ah,
A true turning point in their history.
wow.
But this wasn't just a spontaneous outburst of anger, was it?
Well, we were talking about those knotted cords.
Right?
It sounds pretty strategic to me.
Oh.
How did the revolt unfold?
You're exactly right. It was orchestrated, a true testament to Pope's leadership.
Wow.
It started with individual villages targeting the priests,
Hmm.
often the most visible symbol of Spanish authority,
Right.
and driving out any Spanish settlers.
Dismantling those local power structures one by one.
Precisely. But the ultimate prize was Santa Fe,
Okay.
the heart of the colony.
Yeah.
Pueblo forces converged on the capital and laid siege to the palace of the governors,
Wow.
trapping the Spanish governor and the remaining colonists inside.
It must have been an intense standoff.
Oh, yeah.
The Pueblo warriors determined to reclaim their land, and the colonists suddenly realizing their hold on power was slipping away.
Imagine the tension, but the Pueblo people were relentless. They cut off the city's water supply, forcing the Spanish to choose between surrender or thirst.
Wow, using the environment itself as a weapon.
And it worked.
Wow.
After 9 days, the Spanish governor realized he was defeated.
Mm-hmm.
He negotiated a truce, and he and the remaining colonists were allowed to march south.
Okay.
They eventually ended up in El Paso del Norte, which is modern-day Juarez, Mexico.
So in just a few weeks, the Pueblo people pulled off something remarkable.
They did.
They drove out the Spanish and reclaimed their ancestral lands and freedom.
Truly an incredible feat.
Wow.
But, of course, the story doesn't end there.
Right.
We know the Spanish eventually returned.
Yeah.
But what happened during those 12 years when they were absent from New Mexico?
That's what I'm so curious about. Did the Pueblo people establish a new unified nation under Pope's leadership? Did they create a lasting peace?
This period is where historical records become a bit murky.
Okay.
But Liebman's archaeological work provides some fascinating insights.
Yeah.
Remember, his specialty is literally digging into the past.
So what can we learn from his excavations?
Wow.
What was life like for the Pueblo people after driving out the Spanish?
Well, after the Spanish fled,
Yeah.
Pope went on a tour of the Pueblo villages, urging everyone to reject all Spanish influence
Right.
and return to their traditional ways.
Okay.
Liebman's work at those 4 sites in the Chemez region reveals some fascinating details about how the Pueblo people responded.
I love this. It's like getting a glimpse into the everyday lives of people from the past.
It is.
What did Liebman actually find at those sites?
He found evidence that people initially did exactly what Pope urged them to do.
Okay.
They abandoned the villages established under Spanish rule
Hmm.
and moved back to their ancestral villages.
Wow.
They even revived their traditional pottery styles, rejecting the Spanish-influenced designs that had become common.
Interesting.
It was a true cultural revival.
A deliberate effort to erase the Spanish presence and reclaim their cultural identity.
Exactly. But what's interesting is that this initial unity and adherence to Pope's vision didn't last.
Uh-oh.
As the years went by, there seems to have been a fracturing of political power.
So even after this incredible victory challenges remained,
They did.
why did that unity fade? Did Pope lose his influence?
It seems so.
Okay.
Liebman suggests that Pope may have become too authoritarian, trying to enforce a strict adherence to his vision.
Right.
The Pueblo people, accustomed to a more decentralized form of governance, may have resisted this,
Interesting.
leading to his eventual downfall.
It really shows that history is never a simple story.
It's not.
Even after achieving something as monumental as expelling a colonial power,
Mm-hmm.
there are always new challenges to navigate.
Right, and those internal tensions,
Yeah.
coupled with the looming possibility of Spanish return,
Right.
made this a complex and dynamic period in Pueblo history.
So the Spanish were gone for 12 years,
Yeah,
but we know they eventually came back.
they did.
What led to their return, and how did the Pueblo people respond this time?
The Spanish never truly relinquished their claim to New Mexico. In 1692, they launched a reconquest campaign led by Don Diego de Vargas.
And this is where we run into that phrase, bloodless reconquest.
Right.
But something tells me that's not the whole story.
You're absolutely right to be skeptical.
Yeah.
While de Vargas initially retook Santa Fe without much bloodshed, the following years were filled with battles and uprisings,
Okay.
as the Pueblo people fought fiercely to defend their hard-won freedom.
It sounds like the Pueblo people were ready to resist again, even after 12 years of relative peace.
Absolutely. But this time, the Spanish had learned a valuable lesson.
Okay.
They realized their previous heavy-handed approach wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
If they wanted to maintain control,
Yeah.
they needed to make concessions.
So the Spanish changed their tactics.
They did.
What did those concessions actually look like?
Well, for one thing, they eased up on their attempts to suppress Pueblo religion and culture.
Oh.
Liebman's work points to some interesting architectural evidence of this shift.
Oh.
The mission churches built after the Reconquest were smaller and less imposing than those built before the revolt.
Almost like they were trying to blend in rather than dominate the landscape.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were also integrated into the existing Pueblo villages rather than being built as separate imposing structures.
Okay.
The Spanish also adopted a less aggressive approach to religious conversion.
Okay.
They realized forcing Christianity on the Pueblo people simply wasn't a sustainable strategy.
So the Pueblo Revolt, even though it didn't lead to permanent independence,
Right.
had a lasting impact on the relationship between the Pueblo people and the Spanish.
It absolutely did.
Yeah.
The Spanish had to acknowledge the power and resilience of Pueblo culture,
Mm-hmm.
and the Pueblo people, even though they faced another waves of colonialism, continued to adapt and resist preserving their cultural identity through incredible challenges.
It makes you think about how that spirit of resistance and adaptation shaped their interactions with the next colonial power to arrive, the United States. By the time the U.S. acquired this territory from Mexico in 1848, the Pueblo people had centuries of experience navigating colonial rule.
Think about it. They knew how to adapt, how to negotiate, how to hold on to their identity within a system that was never designed for them.
It's such a stark contrast to the forced displacement and trauma experienced by so many other tribes during that era.
It is?
The Pueblo people's story is a powerful testament to their strength and resilience.
Absolutely. Their history is a remarkable example of cultural survival in the face of immense pressure.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the Pueblo Revolt,
Yeah.
I'm struck by how much one event can ripple through history, impacting not just the Pueblo people, but the entire Southwest.
It's true, the Pueblo Revolt wasn't just a local uprising.
Right.
It reshaped the political and cultural landscape of the region, and its echoes can still be felt today.
Before we go, I have to ask what stands out to you most about this whole story.
For me, it's those knotted cords.
Oh, wow.
They're more than just a clever tool for coordinating the revolt. They're a symbol of Pueblo ingenuity, resilience, and the unwavering determination to reclaim their freedom.
Yeah.
Even in the darkest times, there's always hope. always the possibility of resistance.
I love that it's a powerful reminder that history is full of surprises.
It is.
Even when things seem hopeless, there are always those who dare to fight back, to imagine a different future.
Mm,
And the Pueblo Revolt beautifully illustrates the power of that spirit.
it does.
So for you listening, here's a final thought-provoking question to consider.
Okay.
Some scholars argue the Pueblo Revolt wasn't just about resistance, it was about creating a new future grounded in their own traditions and values.
Okay.
What do you think?
What a great question to ponder.
It reminds us that history isn't just about the past, but about the choices we make today that shape the world we want to live in.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and until next time, keep exploring.